I'm Desie Breadon, Blackhawk Warren High School football head coach and fifth grade teacher at Blackhawk High School. And this is my Wisco Legacy.
Welcome to part 2 of the Desie Breadon episode. Episode 1 was just launched yesterday. It is about Desie and his oldest brother, Gavin, who tragically passed away at 29 years old. That story was all about the impact that Gavin had on Desie's life. Today, we're diving into Desie beyond that. We're talking about his high school and college and career and family journeys. So really excited for you guys to check this out. We dive pretty deep into some coaching aspects and like his life as a student athlete in college and all that fun stuff. So really excited for you guys to check this out. Check out my website, wiscolegacy.com. I wrote an article about Desie on there. I have an article for every single episode up on the website. At the end of this episode, I will be releasing what I'm doing next year, taking the last 2 weeks of the year off. So this is the last episode for this year. But I'm starting off January 4th, 2022, with a really big guest, former Wisconsin Badger wide receiver. So stay tuned to the end of this episode to find out who that is. We'll be promoting that over the next few weeks. So go check that out. Really excited for you guys to hear more about Desie's journey right here on Wisco Legacy. You grew up in Monroe. You were really big into sports. What are the sports that you were involved in as a kid and through high school?
So started swimming when I was competitively when I was 6. And then when I was younger, did pretty much all the sports. Wasn't real good at a lot of them, but still played them, enjoyed them. And then as I got into high school, just focused on football and wrestling and track, and then still did swimming in the summers. And, loved playing all of them. Loved doing all of them. Football and wrestling were my favorites growing up, but wrestling growing up was definitely my favorite. It was funny as a kid, as a high school and in college, I chose wrestling over football any day and every day. That was just, again, it wasn't the best at it, but loved doing it. Your brother was amazing. Yeah, he was a senior when I was a freshman, and him coming back and coaching and working with me, the amount of beatings he gave me, which 90% of them I deserved.
I've heard a few stories.
and there was a lot of them that, again, were deserved. But Chad was awesome working with me and, taking time out of his day to come back and work after practice. And so I just absolutely loved wrestling. I liked doing the other, football was again my next love after that, and then kind of track because it was fun, and swimming, did it to stay in shape for wrestling and football, and enjoyed it, but it wasn't, wrestling was definitely number one. And then was trying to decide. Gav had done wrestling and football his first 2 years of college. Endo was doing wrestling in college. Owen was doing track. Was trying to decide. Again, I was not a great football player by any means. Loved playing it. I guess I was okay. Maybe decent, but not great by any means. But still, thought maybe try and play in college because I enjoyed it. Had a great experience playing high school football. So I sat and debated on trying to do both like Gav. And then it just wrestling won out. It was just too much to try and do both. And again, wrestling was my love. So then, decided, was looking at schools and said, I had gone, and my top 3 schools I had looked at were Central College down in Iowa, Iowa State University, and University of Iowa. Those were really only 3 I looked at. I looked at some other ones, but those were the 3 that I really went and visited, partly because of their sports, partly because of, at that time, I was planning on going to medical school. So because of their medical school or connections, or things we could do to get to medical school, talk to the different coaches, stuff like that. Talk to Bobby Douglas, talked to Jim Zielinski, who was the head coach at that point, had been down for millions of camps down at all three. Knew the Central, community so well because all three, Owen and Gav were all at Central. So, but I was like, I know I'm not good enough to go D1, but I don't want to be 45 years old and not have not tried it and not given it a shot. I don't want to sit there and wonder, could I have made it? Could I not? So that was kind of I got to give it a shot. So, went to wrestling camp at Iowa State, and Bobby Douglas is like, hey, you can walk, we'll give you a shot to walk on, and we'll try and make you a Cyclone. And, that was a selling pitch, and I was like, I got to try it. I know I'm not gifted enough. I shouldn't be wrestling at D3, but I got to try it. And I've seen so many kids who have the ability who don't make it, and kids who didn't have the ability but make it because of here and here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'm like, I got to give it a shot. So I went to Iowa State, tried it. It was brutal. It was great. And I've never got beat on so bad in my life, but I loved it. It was great. Finally actually made the team as a walk-on, but I mean, it was still your life as a walk-on is not easy.
Brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love the experience. It taught me so much that I can use nowadays. It helps me when kids are looking at going to schools and, again, knowing what it takes to even play, do D3 athletics. And then I was just like, Iowa State's just too big. It's just, I can't stay here just for wrestling. And I'm probably going to end up, being here for 4 or 5 years and then, not even wrestling varsity. There was some really good examples of guys that year. Jason Murray came back for his 5th year, was a walk-on and placed second at nationals. I just went blank on his name. Jesse Whitmer was the year before. Same thing. He was a 4-year walk-on at University of Iowa, ended up being a national champ his 5th year. So I had those examples, but I was like, that's not me. And again, to stay here this long, the school was just too big. So I transferred down to Central, went out for wrestling, absolutely loved it. If I wouldn't have made it, if I wouldn't have made that switch, if I, for one, wrestling gave me that built-in safe zone. All the different things, like, again, Gav passing away, all the other rough times I had a pretty rough college, took some time off. I had 13 people that were close that passed away, through part of high school and through college, 13 people in 11 years. And it was just, it was a lot.
That's a lot.
Wow. I wouldn't have made it. Yeah. I wouldn't have made it through, without the people at Central, without making that change to wrestle there and then to go to school. There's so many amazing people there. They sent my daughter a birthday card still the other day. So again, what college sends a 10-year-old kid a birthday card,
right?
Which again shows what a great place it is. Our wrestling coach Matt Deal lived 2 doors down from us. So I knew I could always go there, had a safe spot. But again, I still talk to a bunch of the guys I wrestle with a couple times a week. I talked to a couple of them this week. Our heavyweight and our 118 pounder, I talked to both of them this week and still good friends with them again because of that wrestling connection. So
nice.
Wrestling had a huge impact.
Yeah. The wrestling side of me has to come back to Iowa State for a second. What was it like being around Bobby Douglas? He is an interesting character. I'd love to hear Bobby Douglas' story.
Oh my God. Bobby was an amazing human being, and he was a great guy. I mean, he treated all of us the same, whether you were a piddly walk-on who had no talent like me, or if you were a returning national champ like Chris Bono. I mean, he treated all of us the same. He treated us all with respect. He was a phenomenal guy. I loved being around him. And it was funny. We'd go do morning runs, and I think that's why I hate doing cardio in the morning now. Is those morning runs were just awful. And Bobby would, I think, yeah, I think he was probably in his 60s at the time. We joked about he was 178 years old at the time. And he would be running laps while we're doing our morning runs and conditioning, and he would just be kicking all our butts. And we're like, how is he 50, 60 years old? And he is just killing us. And my again, the one I go back to with Bobby, the one that sticks out the most, he, like I said, there's so many Bobby stories, and he was such a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Chris, and some of those guys, they were so unbelievably strong and good wrestlers. And, and here's Bobby, who's looked kind of like a frail, maybe not frail, but, skinnier, older guy. And I remember him getting mad in practice one day. And he's like, that's it. I'm going with you. And he goes with Bono. And again, here's this guy who, is returning national champ. He, when he was a senior in high school, he, was a 3-4 time state champ. He was 145 pounds and was benching 375. I mean, just strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched Chris go down on the bottom. Bobby gets on top of him in the referee's position, and he just owned him. I was like, how is this little old man just owning this guy? He just owned him. I was like, this is amazing. So that's one story I always come to back with Bobby. It was impressive.
That's awesome.
But just a great guy.
Well, and Bono is a super intense guy, so I'm sure he was getting frustrated and all that too.
Yeah, and again, we learn as we get older. There's a lot of tricks you can do that can neutralize that strength thing in wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Desie initially went into school to go to med school, just like his older brother Gavin, but he ended up going into exercise science. There was a couple of counselors at Central College who helped him pave the path forward in exercise science. And in episode 1 for Gavin, Desie talks about the impact that those folks had. But we dive right in here in talking about the internship he had at Drake University. Yeah, you spent some time at Drake University too, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Working on their strength and conditioning side of things.
Yeah, so that was my internship in college. One of our strength coaches at the time, we were talking through different internships and stuff like that, and I knew I wanted to do an internship in strength and conditioning. And there's so many of them out there, and he's like, hey, there's one at Drake. You can drive up every day. So he got me set up there. Steve Lewis was his name. Steve was phenomenal to get me in there. He's it was so much fun. I still am in contact with the strength coaches there. They taught me so much, but it was a great experience because you got to work with 17 D1 or D1 AA sports. Football was a non-scholarship, but again, you still got to work with good athletes and see what it took at that level and take them through some really things. I love doing strength and conditioning because they're so motivated to be there. You get a lot higher caliber athlete than just your general population, so you can do a lot more advanced things. So that was really fun. And then you got to see the Drake relays and everything else. Where you had Olympic athletes coming in and running at. So being at Drake was a great experience. Learned a ton. Our assistant strength coach there is now the head strength coach out at Ball State. The other Coach C is out at University of Wyoming as a strength coach, so I still contact them from time to time. And it was great being up at Drake as a strength coach.
Yeah, that eventually led you down the path of starting your own gym. You had a gym in New Glarus for quite a while. What was that experience like running your own gym?
It was great, great and rough at the same time. You
Yeah.
know, I, I loved walking into a gym every day, and that was what what you went to work in. It was so comfortable being able to walk in. Everybody else is having to get dressed up and stuff to go to work, and I'm throwing on you know shorts and a hoodie and a hat and going to work, which
Hmm.
was great for me. Um, it taught me a ton. I love the people I met there. I learned a ton. Again, the business side gets tough. One of the biggest things I learned from that was, even when you weren't there, you were there. You were having to worry about stuff there. When you had your own business, it was a lot like farming. You couldn't take breaks. There was a lot of. I mean, my average week up there when I owned the gym was 70, 80 hours, and then there was times where it was 90, 100. So it was tough on us. It was tough on a young family. You couldn't be around for my daughter for a lot of that stuff. So that was tough. But again, liked being in there as far as people you worked with, stuff like that. But it was a good experience as far as a learning experience. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was.
I'd imagine the challenging, or one of the more challenging pieces of it is the general population likes to work out before work and after work and at night. And if you're doing
Mhm.
personal training with them, you're up early, you're opening the gym, meeting people then, when they're done with work, that's when they want to come see you. And yeah, and having that work-life balance is really challenging when you're doing that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not family conducive. Is the best best way to
Yeah.
put it. You know, and that was kind of the what made me make the switch of
Hmm.
I looked at anything I go into in that area. Even as a strength coach, you're still working. You know, during spring ball and stuff like that. I was in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't done till at least 6 at night, and then it was an hour drive home. Um, and then all those different things. So your time was always dictated by other people. And I said, if I stay in this industry, I can still do stuff in this industry, but if I stay in it full time, it's just not family conducive. I want something, and I want something where I can impact more people on a daily basis. And so that's when and I said, I love being around kids. I love teaching. I love coaching. So then made that decision. I'm going to go back to school and finish up my teaching certificate. I had started it in college and then was just ready to be done. So I didn't finish it. So I went back and got my master's at Wisconsin Lutheran for teaching and coaching. And that was definitely the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, you and I had talked quite a bit. We see each other almost every year at the Monroe Mat Rat tournament, and for a few years there, we were talking about you going back to school for teaching, and I was super excited for you to do that and to be able to finish that, and then get a nice job over in Blackhawk School District. Can you talk about getting that initial teaching job over in Blackhawk?
Um, It was great. I was doing my student teaching up at Monticello, and I knew a lot of people up at Monticello because I used to coach track and middle school wrestling and football up there. Monticello people were phenomenal, and they were phenomenal in helping me get the job. Um, you know, I had interviewed for a job there, and I knew like there and Blackhawk and then Monroe were kind of my top three. If I had a choice, I just knew I wanted to get a teaching job. Blackhawk was number one. Knew the area, knew a lot of people there, stuff like that. And I thought if I can get in there, that would be phenomenal in a lot of ways. My wife's from South Wayne and stuff, um, so I had interviewed and stuff at Monticello, and I can't thank Al, the superintendent up there, enough. So I didn't know this at the time. So I got done with our interview at Monticello. The lady who got it definitely deserved it. She had a lot more experience. She was a really good teacher. Um, but Al, the superintendent up there, called Willie, the superintendent down at Blackhawk, and he goes, "Hey, I got this guy who's student teaching for me. I know him through coaching and different stuff." And he's like, "You need to hire him." which was super nice,
Uh-huh.
to call. And again, Al, that was super awesome, Al, to call Willie and put that in. And so Al comes in and tells me that Willie's Mr. Chambers is expecting my application very soon. So I put in my application, went in for an interview. I already knew Corey, Coach Mills, not great, but pretty good through coaching and football and stuff. So I went in for the interview, and getting that call back was just amazing. Blackhawk has been definitely the perfect fit for me in every which way, teaching, coaching, everything. I love it down here. Love the people down here in the community as well as in the school. So yeah, getting that call saying you know we would like to offer you the job. Do you want to think about it? And so I sat and thought about it for about 10 seconds, and I said I'll take it. Um, yeah, it's been great. So I like teaching fifth grade down here, and then again coaching football. Couldn't be any better down here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's awesome. I've met Willie a couple times, Willie Chambers, and he's a great guy. From the couple
yep.
interactions I've had, so I'm glad he was able to see how great of a guy you are and get you on staff there, and then that ultimately got you on the coaching staff there, and whatnot. So that's awesome. So now I want to dive into coaching. So you've coached wrestling, you've done some track. Obviously, football is where your passion really lies on the coaching side of things. What drew you to coaching, and were there any influential coaches over the years that helped you get there?
Um, there's been a lot of influential. Again, it comes back to a lot of it to playing sports with my brothers. Gav was a big influence on it because he had coached me in a lot of stuff, and then seeing his impact on kids. So started with some youth wrestling stuff with um, when I was in high school, doing some stuff and some flag football and stuff like that, and then started doing swim team when I was in college, and continued. So just with football, I've been doing it 17 years, and I knew I wanted to do football, but you know, again, for me, first starting off, it was going to be coach wrestling. So I was coaching a couple different middle school wrestlings, and I enjoy coaching middle school wrestling, and just wrestling in general. But it's funny, as I've gotten into football, as I started and stuff like that, and again, having your impact during the game, I like coaching wrestling and I like coaching the other ones, but football is king for coaching. As an athlete, I chose wrestling every day over football. As a coach, I'll choose football over anything. What you teach kids through it, the character lessons, the camaraderie, not only for the players, but what you get with the players, watching them interact, but then again with other coaches that you coach with. Um, yeah, football is hands down for me, I think the best. Absolutely love it. Your brother was a big influence in me when he was coaching. He taught me a ton of stuff. So Chad was phenomenal. Um, Steve Grosson was, a wrestling coach of ours who put up with a lot of junk from me and my brother. And so Steve passed away in a car accident between my junior and senior year. Um, was able to win his award named after him my senior year. And so a lot of stuff I do coaching wise, I relate back to, lessons that Steve taught me and the way I saw him handle stuff. So he was a big influence. Jim Ingold, our wrestling coach. Um, I've gone back and worked with a ton of the Monroe coaches over the years. Steve Christensen has been great. Dick Carroll was phenomenal. Talked with Pat Martin on some stuff. So they've all been great. So many other, so many guys have been phenomenal. The two biggest the last 5-6 years, Al Minard up at
Mm-hmm.
Edgewood, and Corey. I can't say enough good things about both of them. When me and Al, when I started coaching up at Edgewood, and again, that's a evil word to say down in Monroe and talk about coaching at Edgewood, but
Oh, I got some questions around that. Don't worry.
I was to the point I was ready to walk away from coaching,
Yeah.
and Al, getting hooked up with Al, got that fire reignited. Um, it was a perfect, and his son pointed that out. It was a perfect time for me. It was a perfect time for him. We meshed. Al had taught me so much about the game of football, about life. Again, I wouldn't be coaching today if it wasn't for Al. Um, and then, when I came down to Blackhawk, Corey giving me the opportunity to be on staff, and holy bananas, that guy knows more about football than anybody I've been around. Scheme wise and stuff, he is hands down the best high school coach in the state of Wisconsin. I will argue that with anybody to death. But as a person, as a mentor, he has mentored me so much the last 4 or 5 years. And again, people hear him and he's loud and stuff like that when he's coaching, and they just equate that with negativity. And again, he's not. He does such a phenomenal job of coaching coaches and teaching that as a head coach. As a head coach, you have to coach your coaches, and it's one still I'm working on. But he sits there and breaks stuff down for other coaches. For me, learning a new system, everything else is, when I first came in, it's just as a position coach and then moving up to a head coach. It's not just, hey, you bonehead, you should know this. He sits and works through it and talks through it. He doesn't talk down to you. Like I said, there's been a ton of coaches over the years, our coaches at Central, Kevin Azinger and Matt Deal were big influences. They both have very different styles. And that's, it's been interesting looking at the different styles. Kevin was a lot more like I am, a lot more vocal, a lot louder. Matt was, there for people a lot more. He'd kind of pat them on the back, pick them up. Corey does an amazing job of, he'll drill a kid when a kid needs to get drilled, but then he's the first one over there picking him up, explaining to him why he got on him. And I'm super impressed with how he does that. Al did a phenomenal job again of picking kids up, explaining stuff, talking to them. So those two have been huge the last number of years.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, Al Minard is kind of a legend in the landscape of Wisconsin football. Coached at Edgewood for a really long time. He does I think he still does some broadcasting for state football. His daughter is a phenomenal broadcaster. I played against his son in high school. We played against Edgewood all the time, and definitely a passionate football player. You briefly touched on it, but what are some of the bigger lessons? Maybe not just the X's and O's, but just the ins and outs of coaching student athletes that you learned from Coach Minard there.
He was so big on, again, of getting to know, make that connection with kids, and being there for them and getting them past, where they're going to be just as an athlete. So he really brought that back out in me of, and still at times you got, you put it away and you got to get it back out of, making those personal connections with kids. Al was phenomenal at that and pointing that out. And not just, again, thinking about football more than life. What life lessons are you going to learn out of football? And not just saying, okay, we know that and stuff like that, but all right, pointing that out to the kids. and he was so good. He had so many motivational quotes. Um, and it was funny because again, he very religious guy, so he had to take on certain stuff that some of us didn't. But even if you were a coach, if you dropped an F bomb, you had to run, run around the goalpost and come back. So one of the things that first I'm like, are you serious? And I watched him do it to a couple other assistants. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna try and mind my P's and Q's around Al, and because I have a dirty mouth a lot of the time. But what I liked was again he held he showed the kids that he held his coaches to the same standard as his kids. So that was great to see, and for the kids and the coaches to understand that it's not going to be okay for this guy to do it, but not okay for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Al was a lot of the personal aspect of it, and I mean he was a phenomenal X's and O guy too. But
I'm sure. That's awesome. What was it like standing on the opposite sideline on TR Holyoke Field in Monroe here, coaching against your alma mater? What was that like?
it was interesting. Walking in and being in the visitor locker room, you grew up in, there, and walking and being the enemy, as you, so to speak. And, it was neat because before the game was walking through with a couple of the other assistant coaches, and, took pride in it, showing different awards that, whether it was mine or, some of the state championship ones or pictures that me and my brothers were on, and just different people we knew and stuff. So that was neat. But then walking out on that field and being on the visitor sideline, it was just surreal. Never thought I would be on that side. It was really, really interesting. You'd yell stuff out. You go see somebody go do something, and you're like, tackle that kid. He's from Monroe, and then you're like, well, that sounds so opposite from what I've known for
Right.
30 some years. It was interesting. It was good. I have a ton of respect for the Monroe coaches. Have a really good connection with those guys. So that it was neat where, we put it aside for the game. We hammered each other, and then we're able to come back and have conversations. Think the world of Toby and stuff. So it was weird. It was neat. It was different.
Yeah, that would be really different. Toby's done a really great job. I actually don't know him well, but he's done a really great job of turning around the Monroe football program, and excited for the future. We almost made it to state this year,
Mm-hmm.
14 points short of that, but he's done a really great job here. I have to circle back a little bit though. So you're talking about early on getting into coaching and whatnot, and you and my brother Chad, Aubrey McNett, and Ryan Pickett were middle school wrestling coaches for me and some of my buddies back in the day. It honestly, a lot of us still talk about those days. We all had a really great time. We were a little bit smaller team, but we were mighty. We had a lot of success, and I attribute a lot of that success to the coaching staff there. And honestly, Desie, you're one of the more impactful people on the coaching side of things in my life. So I really appreciate all that. But I do want to know if you have any fun stories from the Knuckleheads that you were coaching back in middle school there.
Oh man, there's a good number of them. Again, there was times where we were at I'm trying to think. We were at Mount Horeb. We were at Mount Horeb tournament, and I'm trying to think of who it was. Came up and asked me and your brother are standing there having something to eat, and I can't remember. Asked us like, he comes up to ask us a question. We're expecting like a question of, hey, should I second period, should I choose up? Should I choose down? Should we go neutral? Something along those lines. And again, this is a middle school kid. You could expect it maybe from one of the elementary kids, but starts asking us about like if we had ever seen this cartoon, and just out of nowhere, and we're like, "What? What in the world? We're in the middle of a wrestling tournament. And Chad just looks at me and he's like, I don't even know what to say. I'm like, I don't either. I'm like, just go. You need to go now. It was just the most random, goofy. We're like, what in the world? But oh my, there was some good ones of, we'd be having you guys, at the end of practice, do some of your conditioning, some of your core stuff. And,
I learned what a plank was that year.
The longest countdowns in the history of life, where a 10 count lasted, 45 seconds. And again, the number of times looking, the coaches would kind of look at each other and we would know if it was a good day, if we should have a good countdown, or if you guys were a little sparky that day, if we should slow it up. And then it was, probably the best was just, again, if somebody got lippy, that's one thing I did like about coaching wrestling was if somebody got lippy, then you knew you were going to demonstrate your next move on them. And I'll leave the name out. So but one of your teammates was getting a little lippy and a little big for his britches one day. And so I said to Chad, I said, we're working on this next, and I'm demonstrating on him. And he like almost had to leave the room because I'm like, and I said to you guys, I said, we're going to work on throws. And I had him come up because, again, he was getting a little big for his britches, and he was talking about how great he was and everything else. And I'm like, I'm going to launch and make sure his feet go up over his head. He had been getting lippy that he would never lose a tournament and this and that. So, yep, I'm like, all right, so you guys got to do this, and locked up with him and launched him. And then I'm like, don't ever get too big for yourself. I just whispered that to him quietly of, be humble, know where you came from. And then I showed it about 3 more times. So yeah, but there is a lot of stories about you guys. You guys were a fun, entertaining group, and great to work with. Because again, we hammered a lot of repetition stuff, and again, it comes back to a lot of stuff we do now at Blackhawk with our. It's a lot of repetition, but again, you saw the improvements from you guys, and you guys did a phenomenal job of, again, not complaining of, oh, we got to do this drill again. We're just going to do it because we know it's going to get us better. So it was a fun group, but yeah, fun to beat on too.
Oh yeah, and it led to success. I mean, I think half of us made it to state. So the repetition, like I said, those planks, it felt like we were doing them for days, and that helped a lot. So it was honestly some of my best memories on a wrestling matter being coached by you guys. So appreciate all the things you guys did there. So you were named the 3rd head coach in the history of Blackhawk. Blackhawk has a huge tradition of success. Your first couple of years as an assistant, you won state titles. What was it like to get that offer of, we'd like you to be the next head football coach here at Blackhawk? What was that like?
It was overwhelming. It was amazing. It's a ton of pressure. That's the biggest thing. People, they've done an amazing job. Corey especially of where they put this program at, and so the amount of pressure to keep it at that level is amazing. People in the community absolutely love their football. They love their basketball. You got amazing community support between both communities. But Coach Murphy and Coach Mills had done such an amazing job, and that was one of the nice things walking in was like you don't have to start with a clean slate. These things are put in place, and again, that's part of why I wanted to apply for it. Of everything that those guys had worked for had made this program. I didn't want to see somebody else come in, strip those out, and then because you've seen it at so many programs where somebody comes in and they're going to change this and they're going to change that, and it's not the same program, and they don't stay at the same level. And I was like, I want things that we're going to have little tweaks and different flavors on some stuff, but for the most part, and again, instead of having to completely change the culture is already there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the hardest thing when you come into a school is changing the culture. And so knowing that Coach Murphy and Coach Mills had built that culture and knowing what it took and those guys passing it on to younger groups of what it takes to be successful. And that part was super nice to walk in and for one to be as an assistant and then move on to the head job of knowing that that's in place. But again, the pressure with it is a ton. But I would rather have that pressure than be like, oh, we won 3 games. All right, let's be excited about that. No, I would rather have that. I want those expectations, and Corey's always does a great job of, we're not going to apologize for our expectations. And, kind of taking that same approach of, from coaches and players. So it's definitely something I take as a huge honor to be the third coach. I try and work my tail off to keep the program where those guys got it to and continue to learn from those guys and keep it rolling the way it is. Super proud of our kids, for what they did in the last 8 months. We had a smaller team and stuff like that, but to sharing 2 conference titles and to make it to level 3, and to do all that in 8-9 months, I'm super proud of these guys. It was a lot on a coach. It was a lot on the kids, and super proud of those kids and the other coaches on how they, for them to do that. But yeah, it's been a huge honor to be the third coach.
Yeah, you had 2 seasons of this calendar year. You played spring ball this year, which had to be super different. Your brain's not used to thinking about X's and O's in March. But yeah, to go through all that, and early on in COVID, I'm sure your locker room probably wasn't available, or your weight rooms and things like that, and working through that whole virtual school coaching aspect of things was probably pretty difficult. Combining that with you're in a co-op with Warren, Illinois, so there's some challenges when you're working in a co-op as well with logistical items for sure. So yeah, there's a lot there, and yeah. So I know I do want to talk about those 2 state title runs quickly here. So what was it like walking on that field at Camp Randall and then being able to hoist those gold balls up?
Oh, it was awesome. I haven't been there as a player. Having been, played at Camp Randall, winning it as a junior, taking second as a senior, but still just being there. But being able to be on, both sides of it as a player, and then now being able to do it, being able to do it as an assistant coach 2 years. Being able to get both was amazing. Most people would hope to just get on there once as one or the other. So to get it both was phenomenal. It was both years was in 2018. I was up in the booth, so it was a little different because then you're up there, you're watching stuff, and then you're trying to get down so you can get in on the celebration, and you get so much emotions, and then. In 2019, being on the field and trying to, keep everything at the end, and there, it was an amazing experience. It was like, one of those ones you wish it was like Groundhog's Day, that you could just keep reliving that day because it was just so much fun, so enjoyable. The kids were phenomenal. It was definitely, one of the best days I've ever had coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So much to enjoy being a part of. Yeah, it was awesome. It was.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to fully describe it. But it was interesting because got done with that first one, and you're seeing everybody run around, and you're seeing them host a trophy, and this is a goal I've been set out for how many years to be a part of a state championship as a coach. And one of the real things that I'm sitting there thinking about why I see that actually happen is I'm sitting there thinking about Gav and that impact and you know all the things with him, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. And thinking of doing it in his name and was that's what I kept thinking about and was pretty neat.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I'd kind of forgot you were on a state title team in football, and your senior year I was only a few years old, so I'll go based on stories I've heard. You guys were really close to winning that state title, weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
yards
yeah.
away.
Yeah, we they broke. It was what 21. I want to say it was 21-21 or 21-20. Um, it was what was it, fourth and one. Um, they went and I still again one of the few plays I remember. It was one of the best fakes I've ever seen. So they faked like they were doing a fullback dive, and I remember tackling and being in on that fullback. And then all of a sudden looking up from the ground, expecting a whistle, and seeing their quarterback was kind of jogging, like he was jogging to the side, and then he takes off in a full sprint, and seeing him just run down. And then that was the winning score. And that was late in the fourth quarter, and it was just it was a close game, and it was just brutal to look up and see that and be like, oh, it was
Mm-hmm.
there, and then we just couldn't finish it off. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's still just to be up there and be a part of it was.
yeah, yeah. That's crazy. The early '90s Monroe football. My brother was on the three-peat. You got the state title there. It was a dynasty back then. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. All right, so I'll transition to some rapid fire questions quickly here. So first thing that comes to mind, these are all about the state of Wisconsin, and then I have a final question to kind of wrap things up. All right, what's your favorite restaurant in Wisconsin?
Favorite restaurant in Wisconsin? It's funny when we talk about these in class when we do rapid fire questions, and then your brain goes completely blank.
Been there.
Um, is it just a Wisconsin only restaurant?
No, no.
No. Um, I would say Golden Corral is like one of the top ones. That's been a big one for us. The buffet gotta go
Nice,
with.
nice.
I know it's nationwide, but yeah, that's usually kind of one of my first. Yeah,
That's a good one. That's a good one.
that or Red Lobster. Yeah, are probably two up there.
Nice. What's your favorite event in Wisconsin?
Favorite Brent Badger football. Going to a Badger, a Saturday Badger football afternoon Badger football game, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably going to a Brewers game after that, but Badgers football would be number one for me.
Surprised to hear Brewers out of your mouth. Aren't you an Astros
I
fan?
know I am an Astros fan, but it's still fun to go to a Brewers game.
You got that right. All right, last rapid fire question. Where's your favorite place to hang out in Wisconsin?
Favorite place to hang out? Probably the zoo.
Yeah.
I love, probably, I like both Milwaukee and the Madison, but Madison Zoo, I love going to, I would say that going there with the kids and my wife, Tara, that would be that's one of my favorite places to go. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a 2.5-year-old and My second daughter is 11 weeks now. She hasn't gone to the zoo yet, but my 2.5-year-old loves animals. So yeah, seeing her see the giraffes and rhinos and lions and tigers and all that, it's just lights her face up. It's so fun.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
seeing how they react is definitely the best. I like animals, but yeah, watching how the kids react to it and just seeing them go bonkers, yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, I'm the dad that throws her up on my shoulders and walks around and all that. All right, Desie, I got a final question here for you, and then we can kind of wrap up here. So, when all is said and done, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Um, you know, the biggest thing thinking about it, teaching, coaching, being a husband, I just want to be remembered that I had a positive impact on people's lives. Not concerned about money or again want to win more state titles and do all those things. I want to have have the accolades. I don't want to be remembered for them. I want to be remembered for having that positive impact on people's lives. I'm a different person because of the impact you had on my life. That's when all is said and done. That if that's what I want to be remembered for. I don't want to be remembered for anything else. I'm sure there's plenty of people who might remember me in other ways, maybe not the best, but I just want to impact people's life in a positive way and just say, I got here because of things you did. You left a footprint on my heart, and that's kind of where it is.
That's
That would
awesome.
be my legacy.
That's a great legacy. I mean, I can tell you from experience, being the little middle school wrestler that I was, you made a significant impact in my life, my wrestling career. Some of the things that you instilled in me at that young age, I still dive into. Obviously, I've lost a ton of weight over the last year, and part of that was through the hard work and determination that you helped forge in me in middle school. So, yeah, just from my perspective, you're definitely living that legacy. And yeah, I appreciate the time here today, Desie. This was a lot of fun, talking all things your family, coaching, and all that. It was a blast. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah. I gotta say one quick one because otherwise I'll get beat to death by my kids and wife. None of this would be possible, especially coaching everything else. I've got the most amazing coach's wife ever. Tara does an amazing job, and for her allowing me to go spend time with other people's kids and not with my own, is absolutely amazing. So I gotta give her a quick shout, and then obviously the three little monsters, Mia, Callum and Mateo, I definitely got to say at least one quick thing on them because, again, they're the reason I get up and stay moving in the right direction. So I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for those four. So
yeah, that
I
family
had to make
support.
sure I got that.
Yeah, absolutely. That family support. I mean, even dating back to running the gym, all the countless hours you were putting in there, and then getting into coaching and whatnot. That's a crucial key component to success. So that's awesome. Well, Desie, I appreciate you hopping on Wisco Legacy.
Thank you very much for having me.
Big shout out to Desie for coming on and talking at length about the impact his brother Gavin had on his life, coaching, high school and collegiate sports, and all sorts of things. I had a blast. Desie's been one of the more impactful people I've had in my life. He just coached me a few years in wrestling, but he made a tremendous impact on my life. So, Desie, thank you so much for hopping on Wisco Legacy and sharing your story. At the beginning of the episode, I mentioned that I have a big guest coming up. I am taking the last 2 weeks of the year off to spend some time with family around the holidays. So I'm really excited to announce that on January 4th, we're kicking off the new year with former Badger wide receiver, former NFL player Jonathan Orr. Jonathan Orr played for the Badgers in the early to mid 2000s. He graduated in 2006 from the Badgers. Went on to play a couple of years in the NFL with the Titans and Raiders, and now he runs a company called Athlete Transition Services, where he provides services to athletes that are transitioning to life after sports. He does a lot of career development and transition work, and there's mental health, financial coaching, all sorts of things. It's such a blast talking to him. I'm really excited for you guys to hear that episode. Again, that comes out January 4th. So thank you for following along on Wisco Legacy over this year in 2021. It's been a blast for me to do. And if you have any requests for guests or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always trying to chase down the next person or the next story. So for everybody listening, thank you very much and have a great holiday.